Well, I'm not Muslim. You're too intense. You pray too much. 5 times is too much. Your beard is too long. You're not British. You're not like us. Your parents are Polish. You're too quiet. You're the wrong kind of doctor. You dress strangely. Your parents are not Punjabi. You don't earn enough. You will never marry a Punjabi. You're one of these dirty immigrants we hire to do our driveway and they run with the money. Well, I believe in God. I pray 5 times a day. I pay my zakat when I have to. I fast during Ramadan, and I hope going to Hajj one day. I didn't embrace Islam for people. When it's been 10 years, then a majority of people who identify as Muslim tell you that no matter what you do, what you say, you don't belong. What can you do? And I never got this in any other country. France, Poland, the US, Turkey, even India or Pakistan. I never got this anywhere else but in England. So I wanted people to tell me why me being Polish was a problem for marriage. Why me praying 5 times a day was too much for your Muslim charity. Why me having a beard was a problem for your admin job. What does the length of my beard has to do with my work performance or my capability of being a good husband? Tell me. No one ever replied. So it's been 10 years and I'm tired of fighting to be accepted. I've tried to integrate as much as I can. I learned basics of Arabic. I know how to read the Quran. I know 20 surahs by heart. I know the lives of the main prophets. And even I've tried to integrate myself into the dominant culture. I've learned Urdu. I know how to speak it. I can understand it. I know bits of Punjabi. I even learned how to make roti salan. And when I make doodh patti, my father-in-law approves. What can I do more? I can't spend the rest of my life, my time, my money, my energy fighting to be accepted. Because I have other priorities. I need to take care of my physical health, my mental health, my wife, my family, my friends, my 3 jobs. If for most people here I'm not Muslim, yeah, go for it. Call me whatever you like. My contention is when I came to the UK, in every mosque, in every student association, in every organization or charity, people were selling the kind of narrative around the Ummah, saying that the most beautiful thing about being Muslim is that wherever you are surrounded by other Muslims, you will never be alone. That was true in France. But since day one in this country working for a Muslim organization with Muslim colleagues around me, and spending my first Ramadan in the UK completely alone, I started asking myself questions. It never happened in France. So of course I've met wonderful people in organizations which I speak about in my books, my articles, my videos, but for 10 years I've been feeling like an anomaly. And I'll tell you more exactly why in a minute. People are told that for marriage or for finding jobs or just making friends, your passport doesn't matter. Your skin color doesn't matter. Your social status doesn't matter. But what I found on the ground, what I've experienced and seen happening to other people, it was the complete opposite. Like many newcomers, you want to do something for the Ummah because you love the Ummah, you love this idea, and this is a wonderful idea, let's be honest. But when you find out that your passport, your social status, the origin of your parents poses a problem for you to find a job and bringing food on the table or starting a family, I think this is when there is a problem. So of course, a lot of newcomers to Islam here in the UK have found a nurturing community and lovely people. But this video is specifically for all of those who have been rejected, abused, taken advantage of in the name of religion. It's for people who have doubts or having a hard time staying Muslim or not sure about embracing Islam because all of this conflicting information between the message of Islam and what people do with it. I want to reiterate that here Islam is not at fault. People's culture is not at fault because they don't even practice their own ancestral culture. And Muslims are not responsible globally for all of that. It's just very specific individuals and specific organizations that use Islam for their own gain. But in my experience, for 10 years, they happen to be the majority of people I've met. But this is a happy video because stopping fighting for acceptance is one of the best decisions I've taken in my whole lifetime. I decided to just cut out all of these harmful people from my life and stick with the very few I love and trust. This very small community of supportive people who love me for who I am and as I am. And let me tell you, it goes beyond faith and beliefs. People who do not necessarily share the same faith or practices, but at least we agree on the same values. Story time. The first thing that comes into my mind when I go through some painful experience is that it's probably my fault. I've done something wrong. Maybe I'm just a bad person. Or maybe I am paying for all the sins I've committed back in those days. But then something doesn't line up. Why was my experience in France and other countries for so many years so positive? My experience with Muslims in France for 5 years was 95% positive. In the UK, for 10 years, I would say it was 85% pain, 10% neutral, and 5% good. Look, in France, when I was 21, I was a student only, and I didn't have much work experience. And some of the main organizations were offering me jobs, and I'm talking about Muslim Hands France, Islamic Relief France, and Human Appeal France was just settling before I left. But here in the UK, having completed my PhD and having gained work experience, when I applied for all these the same kind of organizations, for the same kind of jobs, I got systematically rejected. Well, it happens. Maybe the competition is really harsh in the UK, I was telling myself. But the world is very small. And when I didn't get feedback, I would ask some friends who happened to work in the organizations I applied for and tell me, hey, can you just ask, why did I got rejected for that job? And they told me the strangest reasons I've ever heard. Praying 5 times a day is too much for a Muslim charity. For the length of my beard was a problem, and it was even not as long as now. You're not like us, you're too quiet, you're Polish. And same for marriage. I didn't have any problems talking marriage with people in France, even when I already left for the UK. It happened after my divorce. But in the UK, similar reasons. You pray too much, your beard is too long, you're not British, your parents are Polish, you're the wrong kind of doctor, you dress strangely, your parents are not Punjabi, you will never marry a Punjabi. And even from my own parents-in-law, he's just like all these dirty people who you hire to build your driveway and they run away with the money. And I've never heard any stereotypes about Polish people elsewhere in the world. It was specifically here in England. Only heard things like that. So you may say that maybe I stayed in the wrong corner of England, but hey, look, I'm a sociologist and my job is by definition being paid to travel around the world and do interviews of people and organizations. So since 2009, I think I've interviewed easily hundreds of people, dozens of organizations in various countries in France, Mauritius, Poland, Germany, Spain, the Netherlands, Belgium, the US, Canada, French Guiana, India, Pakistan, Turkey. And I've interviewed moms, dads, activists, artists, academics, community organizers. I've interviewed celebrities, influencers, MPs, Muslims who are against Prevent, Muslims who are pro-Prevent, Muslims who are pro-Palestine, Muslims who are against Palestine. It exists. 85% of my experiences here in the UK were completely negative, where I felt people judged me, rejected me, discriminated me for all the reasons I've quoted above. I'm all about improvement. My life is all about becoming a better person. So I've asked people for feedback. Why did you reject me? Why wasn't I good enough for you? And how did I hurt you? And the replies were all the same, some kind of very vague answers. And when you got to the bottom of it, you understand that your passport, your cultural background, who you are, your travel tastes, your dressing code are excuses serious enough for you not to get married, get a job or whatever. And it's not because I'm white, because here in the UK, you've got some really famous and admired white Muslims. It's just I've been made to understand that I'm not the right kind of white. Because here you have a very strong anti-Polish sentiment. So then, I thought of changing myself, transforming myself into becoming that person who would be accepted. And I was looking at who are the kind of people they were hiring instead of me, who are the kind of people they were marrying instead of me. And they all had a kind of similar profile. It was loud boys driving white BMWs or Mercedes who were clean-shaved or with a laser-trimmed beard, and were not really into religion at all and had the very same routine: shisha, the gym, and holiday to Dubai all year long. And despite having no skills or experience for the jobs they were hired, people would hire them. And despite being horrible to their wives, and I've seen people divorcing within 1 year of their marriage, and sometimes people call the police, it gets really serious and legal, but still they were able to get married and again and again and again. So there was a point, you understand, that when you see this happening, you think, maybe I should become like these guys. Because these were the successful Muslim guys who everyone was hiring, everyone wanted for marriage, and everyone was admiring. Even if they had no skills for the job or completely abusive personalities. But then maybe this is how I should become. Maybe I should stop praying altogether. Maybe I should shave my beard. Maybe I should, buy on credit one of these newer, white BMW or Mercedes, show off with that. Maybe I should become as well very loud, very arrogant, overconfident and full of myself like they were. Maybe I should have become selfish and greedy and only interested about my own gain. Maybe I should have supported Prevent. Yeah, I thought about this, because if you look in the UK, all these guys who supported the work for Prevent, now I don't have to worry about their future. Boom, yeah, huge salaries, 8-bedroom houses, they're living the life. The problem I have is I have this thing called ethics where I just can't be paid for oppressing people. That's just, I wouldn't be able to sleep at night. But anyways, I've realized a few years down the line that even if I transformed myself to that extent, it wouldn't have been enough, and I'll tell you more in a minute. Because at the end of the day, I think maybe we just don't practice the same religion. Maybe British Islam is this kind of religion native to Britain, just like the Anglican Church, with its own beliefs, its own texts, its own prophets, its own imams, rituals, pilgrimage sites, and its own version of heaven and hell. Many would locate its creation at somewhere between Buckingham Palace, Westminster, and Bradford for some reason. So British Islam doesn't believe in one God, but it worships a trinity, which is money, power, and fame. It's good to be rich, famous, or powerful, but the problem is there's a difference between, for example, being rich and worshipping money. Because when you worship something, you are basically ready for anything, to do anything for the sake of money, even if it harms other people or yourself. You just basically dissolve your entire existence into something. So British Islam worships money, fame, and power, and just uses Allah as a kind of cultural quirk, or I would say marketing argument for making more money, like in the charity sector or social media. It's basically a branding exercise. The rituals are centered on showing off that you've made it. I don't know what does it mean to make it, but showing off that you've made it, even if you're still poor, which means either you show off your material possessions or the illusion that you've got lots of material possessions, that you have power and influence, which means rituals such as getting heavily in debt with credit card loans and high interest rates, getting everything you have on loan, your clothes, your furniture, cars on PCP, mortgages, and invest heavily on augmenting your presence on social media. The Sunnah of British Islam is show off. Show off even if it means by illegal or unethical means. Show off even if it means through drugs, money laundering, accepting money for Prevent, accepting money from governments or brands who do not care about human rights. Just amass as much material possessions and markers of power as you can. This is the Sunnah of British Islam. Shout all over the place that you've made it, when you have graduated, when it's your birthday, when you have a gender reveal party. Shout all over the place that your kids are going to private school. Shout to everyone how you are a god, walking amongst humans. Shout out to everyone who may buy your self-published book on Amazon, or your get-rich-quick scheme, or your book about how to make a get-rich-quick scheme. British Islam has one pilgrimage site, and it's not Makkah, it's Dubai. Everyone, if you read the Quran of the British Islam, everyone should do the pilgrimage to Dubai at least once in their lifetime if they have the means to do so. So if you don't have the means, you don't have to go to Dubai, but you should get a loan with your credit card to pay for your plane tickets and your 5-star resort. British Islam celebrates Christmas, but hey, it's not shirk because it's never about Jesus. It's just like British Islam Ramadan. It's all about having good food in excess, spending time with family, and displaying sometimes, the balloons. But the only difference is that you have a Christmas tree in their house. That's the only difference. To reach Jannah, or to be a valid British Muslim in England, the Sunnah is very simple. It's all over social media. It's commandments like make 6 figures, get a Lambo, send your kids to private school, get a second wife, get designer clothes, and very important, get on the New Year's honors list. Get a medal of the British Empire. Yeah, if you don't have this, you're not a valid Muslim in the UK. And actually, the adab of British Islam is very much inspired by the British political climate. You have to be self-centered, materialistic. Don't be friendly to newcomers. Exclude people, exclude others according to their race, or their social status, or their economic class, and for many, also exclude people according to their caste. It's only when I came to the UK that I learned about the difference between Rajput, a Darzi, or a Mochi, and that these people cannot marry each other, in theory. Well, some people may pray, fast, and give to charities, but these are all cultural practices, just like having roti salan or dal chawal. So what people have in common is this attitude of begging for acceptance and validation to the dominant society. Please accept us, give us an OBE or CBE, feature us on Channel 4 BBC. And this at the cost of their morals, their ethics, and basically their whole identity. And the key is compete with others. Compete. If you are actually rich, famous, or powerful, be careful not to share your wealth, your power, or your visibility with anyone else who might become richer or more famous than you. This is a big no-no. If you do this, you go to the hell of British Islam. British Islam has very, very little in common with the religion of Islam, which is, by the way, not a religion. It's more of a matrix or an ecosystem. I refer this to previous videos and publications, which acts as a framework and a guide for all the aspects of life. So British Islam is very, very different from that. Islam by itself, just like God, doesn't belong to anyone or any country. So when you even say British Islam, it's more than just appropriating faith in God as material possessions. British Islam is trying to appropriate nationally something that cannot be appropriated. If you don't agree with me, well, congratulations, you deserve an OBE, a Medal of the Order of the British Empire. And after realizing that, yeah, we don't practice the same religion, everything became so clear. Because I realized that even if I changed myself, I transformed myself into this guy who doesn't pray, goes to Dubai, the gym, and have shisha, it wouldn't have been enough because I am just not South Asian. British Islam is an auto-ethnicized or auto-racialized religion, which means that you can be part of only if you are part of a certain ethnic group. And the dominant ethnic group are South Asians. You can be Arab, but that's the limit because, yeah, you basically come from the Gulf or the Middle East and this is where the revelation happens and blah, blah, blah. Otherwise, like me, you're not the right kind of Muslim. And the same thing applies to everyone who is a black Muslim. It applies to physically or mentally challenged Muslims. It applies to Muslims who study the arts or history instead of business and finance. And it applies to a lot of Shia Muslims, Ahmadi, Ismailis, because they are British, they are Muslim, but they're just not the right kind of British Muslim. And guess what? I know Muslims who are Pakistani, Punjabi, who graduated from Oxford, who earn a lot of money as doctors or barristers, but still they are not considered as valid Muslims. And guess why? What is the reason for that? It's because they have the wrong lifestyle. They refuse to buy expensive cars. They prefer spending on books rather than on designer clothes, and that's just so uncool. That's barbaric. So, conclusion, as much as I wanted to, these are all the reasons why, well, I will never be a British Muslim, and why I can't become a British Muslim ever. Because historically, and I am referring to a report by Yahya Burt, which I'll put in the link in the description, about like Muslims in minority context. The Ummah, the idea of Ummah was never about ethnicity. Never about ethnicity or like cultural commonalities. The Ummah is first based on values. And I also understand that people have lots of trauma, money trauma, that people are collectively traumatized, they have their own mental health issues, people cannot afford therapy or afford waiting on the long waiting lists for the NHS, but it's not an excuse for harming others. And this is why I draw the line, because how come a country with so many Muslims, where Muslims have so much freedom, think about it, so much freedom, people choose to crush each other instead of supporting each other or nurturing each other. So it's very difficult for me to have mercy. I can understand, but it's hard for me to have mercy on people who knowingly persist at harming others while passing for saints and justifying it with religion. This is not an ummah, this is battle royale. So yes, there is solidarity, and I'm amazed at the level of solidarity that people show towards people who are accused of or have been shown to abuse, sometimes publicly, black people, women, or children. Or so many cases, in mosque, when like child abuse happens, don't say anything, it's fitna. Don't say anything or you will spread Islamophobia. But let me tell you this, if I had a choice between saving kids, knowing that it's gonna provoke like headlines in the Daily Mail and so on, and staying silent for the sake of not provoking fitna, I will choose saving kids, even if it means that we're gonna have headlines in the Daily Mail and the Sun and so on. And I am more than happy to face God with that decision. If being British Muslim means oppressing others, then I am more than happy to be out of it. I don't want to have anything to do with these arrogant charity CEOs who appear extra religious, almost like saints, who boast about helping orphans and at the end divert zakat money to buy themselves a Porsche. In French Guiana, let me tell you, I've met people who are part of gangs and resorted to robbing and killing people as means of survival. And I had a chat with them and they told me, we know that what we're doing is wrong, but hey, we need to survive. I would prefer to deal 1,000 times more with these people than any of these charity CEOs. Because at least you know what to expect. They know that they're wrong and they tell you, they're not pretending something or playing a game or acting, And I blame it on British hypocrisy because everyone here is smiling, oh yeah, the Ummah, you will never be alone. People will always support you. Please work for us, work for free, fi sabilillah. I just wish that people told me from day one that you don't belong and you will never will. I don't want to have anything to do with these humanitarian charities who abuse their staff, abuse beneficiaries, and abuse their volunteers and children even, and reject people for jobs because they're not British, because they're not loud and arrogant, because they pray 5 times a day. It's too much for a Muslim charity, someone who prays. I don't want to have anything to do with the Dawah scene, who boast about inviting people to Islam, but instead are the most divisive takfiris and alienate you if you're not exactly like them. They put oud and mosque, but for many newcomers to Islam, when they watch some videos, they tell me, these guys, they're on the other side of the screen, but I can smell, it smells like division. I don't want to have anything to do with the alt bros who boast about defending Islam against its greatest enemies. But when you ask, what are the greatest enemies of Islam? They will tell you, it's not the governments who spend millions on oppressing and incarcerating innocent Muslims is not those who commit genocides against Muslims. It's not the media or Islamophobes or anything. The greatest enemies of Islam are black Muslims, Muslim women, and drag queens. I don't want to have anything to do with Sufis who pretend, boast about serving people and being all peace and love. But when you dig deeper, it's about entering a very specific club where only people who tick certain boxes can enter and are willing to give up many things for the sake of obeying a certain master. And I don't want to have anything to do with all of these British Muslim academics or activists who boast about changing society for the better and who have attained the highest levels of education and knowledge, but who are more than happy to stab their fellow academic or activist brothers and sisters in the back. I don't want anything to do with Muslim businessmen and politicians who boast about representing Muslims and the interest of the vulnerable, but are caught in this rat race to be on the honors list and become members of the British Empire, the very same empire that enslaved, abused, robbed their own ancestors. I don't want to have anything to do with these Muslim celebrities or influencers who boast about making Muslims visible. But be it, on Playboy magazine, OnlyFans, Pornhub, but they just turn religion into a brand, turning Ramadan into this commercialized Christmas just to get ahead. If you have observed things happening around, people don't go to religious scholars anymore for advice because so many of them have abused their power. Now people for religious advice turn to fashion YouTubers. England is a country literally where when you say Salam Alaikum to a Muslim in the street, they look at you as if you have committed a crime. England is one of these countries where Muslim kids at school bully other Muslim kids for going to the mosque. And it's a trend here. People who have sincere intentions and do good work, and I've seen so many of them, they get left behind. Those who get ahead are those who use the Quran as toilet paper. And I've heard so many similar stories to the point where, I understand why people leave Islam. So I've met ex-Muslims and people who are on the verge of leaving Islam and, convert who left Islam. And I've noticed two things. There's two main reasons. First, there are people who leave because of metaphysical doubts. They're having a hard time believing in the idea of a God and the prophets and so on. And, fair enough. There's no compulsion in religion. You cannot force someone to believe something. You need to respect that if you don't believe in God, nobody has the right of shoving their beliefs and force you to practice rituals like down your throat. It should be your own choice. It's an intimate relation between you and the Creator or whatever you choose to, and people just cannot force it. It's wrong. And you've seen statistics in my previous videos that across the globe, around 50% of people who identify as Muslims do not even practice basic rituals. And it doesn't mean they're bad Muslims. Everyone is on a journey. Everyone has a different level of understanding and a different relationship with faith or God or whatever they want to believe in. And personal journeys have to be respected if it's not harming anyone. If you have doubts, it's okay to pose. It's okay to ask questions. And actually, this is my whole journey. Ask questions. If you have doubts, don't leave any stone unturned. It is your right. You have the right to know. There is no secret or obscure things in Islam. It's one of the most transparent religions I've ever come across. And this is one of the main reasons I've embraced it. Because you can use your brain, you can ask questions, you can consult people, you can even read controversial things. That's your own choice. I just don't agree with ex-Muslims who are paid loads of money by the racism or Islamophobia industry and who make extra efforts to monitor, arrest, incarcerate or threaten other Muslims just because of their faith. I think this is wrong. The second thing I've realized when it comes to people leaving or on the verge of leaving religion is that one of the main reasons, and I think this is the majority of these cases, it is, well, because of people. And specifically, it is about how pious people, or people who appear pious, have treated them. Because if the only example of Muslims you have seen in your life is your abusive spouse, or someone who is violent with their hands or their words, and appear pious, appear extra religious, or, just like in my case, would justify their actions with religion, when what is going to be your idea of Islam if this is the only example you have? People can't make the difference. Just take, for example, my parents. They cannot be bothered at age 60 to read the Quran and research what is really Islam about. The idea they have of Islam is going to be either what they see on TV, or when it comes to real Muslims, they're going to see what my ex-wife, how she was behaving with me. And the problem is, when you are in an abusive relationship, and this is the only thing they see, someone who wears hijab, who fasts during Ramadan, prays 5 times a day, is abusive towards their son, what kind of elements can make them make the difference that no, this is not what Islam says, this is just one person among many others? Do you think people have the time and the energy to investigate? Also, if you are trapped in such a toxic and harmful environment with people who use religion to oppress you, then people get into survival mode, and you don't really think twice. You need to leave these people and everything they represent, because this is how trauma works. It's not rational. It's very hard, if these people have associated so much with religion, and this environment has been so harmful and damaging for you, in your brain you need to distance yourself. Fight or flight response. People need to flee and stay away. And it's a retreat to safety, basically, when people leave Islam sometimes. Anyone who identifies as Muslim publicly is going to be, willingly or not, an ambassador for Islam. Can you just be decent human beings? And if not, just don't drag religion into this. Don't justify it with religion. Be honest about who you are. It has really saddened me to come to that decision, because I've really burnt myself for an illusion, really. I've made a list, I've written a list of all the things that I have done in my life when it comes to Islam, and I'm the first in my family to embrace Islam against everyone's will. I am born from Polish parents who migrated to France without money, without networks, without resources, and without any family here. And despite all this, I'm the first one in my family to get a PhD. I'm probably one of the very first Muslim reverts in my country to get a PhD. And the only reason I did this PhD is for the Ummah. That was my intention. My intention was to write the truth, writing what I was seeing that the media would never cover for the Ummah. My intention was to use my position of power to amplify the voices of people who do actual good work on the ground, and then again for the Ummah. I moved to the UK because I was offered a job, and for me it was a better way of serving the Ummah. I've been promised that the Ummah is going to always be there for me, no matter what I do, where I am, whatever I need, wherever I go, and I won't have to worry anything. This is why I pursue that way. So I've pushed myself to the limit for 15 years because I believed in the idea of the Ummah. I have overcome 5 years of abusive marriage, then 5 years of subsequent depression and suicidal thoughts, to finish my PhD, translate my whole PhD from French to English and get it published, and not with anyone, with Routledge, to spread the knowledge. And I did this for the Ummah. I've dedicated my skills, my experience, my professional life to serve people, and specifically Muslims, because I wanted people to stop hurting. And I have proved that people use Islam as a motor for civic engagement in France and Poland, yes, even in the UK. It exists to fight all these anti-Muslim narratives that were dominating the field. And I have overcome finding myself jobless twice, without a home, and with my bank account at zero twice. And despite all of that, I braved the British academic system, understanding how it works, and managed to get the highest possible grant you can get at my career stage in the whole of Europe, £300,000 for working on my own research project for the Ummah. The equivalent of if Harvard gave you $500,000 to work on your own thing. And I burnt myself out. I damaged my physical health, my mental health, and the well-being of my family because of that. Because for me, work with these intentions was a priority. And now, well, I am just done with people who don't deliver on promises. People who presented themselves as friends, who used to boast about helping others and promised me that they will always be there for me, whatever happens. And then they closed door after door after door. I'm done with that. If people promise to help you, but when time comes, they cannot help you secure even a small but stable income or a community, it makes you pay with your health for your work or your family life. Well, there's a moment you need to say stop, and you cannot take hits anymore. Again, in the Quran, not the British Quran, but in the Quran, your body and your mind, they have a right over you. You need to take care of your physical and mental health. I firmly believe that one shouldn't have to fight to be accepted as a valid human being. One shouldn't have to fight for the right to be heard and supported. One shouldn't have to fight to find a community. So I've burnt myself to a point where my body and my mind couldn't take it anymore. So we can see in previous videos what is PTSD, chronic fatigue syndrome. And I don't mind having been through all of this because I just, got stronger, I got wiser. And this is a knowledge I can transmit. And I'm extremely grateful to all of the people who were there to support me and loved me for who I am and as I am. But it's just the recovery and healing process is just very long, tiring and annoying. It's very frustrating. But when people harm you to that level, you need to say at some point that, well, you don't want to be accepted by these people anymore. Because what does it mean if you get accepted by harmful people? It means that you have to harm others as well. So it's a never-ending cycle. So I'm in the process of moving to a different country where people would at least respect my experience, my skills, my passion, my qualifications, my dedication, and not judge me upon my passport, my parents' origin, or the fact that I don't go on holiday to Dubai. And yeah, people who just can be a community that supports me and loves me for who I am and as I am. So thinking about it, the community I believed in, the community I loved, perhaps it never existed in the first place. But it took me 10 years of effort to realize that, no, it's never gonna work. So now, I'm just closing doors. It's over. I don't have any more patience or energy left for harmful people. And it's a basic rule of life. If you find yourself with harmful people and you've tried things to the max where you could and it's not working, at some point you need to say stop. It's like a poison. If something is poisoning you, stay away from it. And if you're a Muslim and watching this, don't say sorry on behalf of other Muslims, because I have a question. If you say sorry on behalf of other Muslims, are you part of them? Are you the same people? Are you the same harmful people? And if so then don't say sorry, just ask yourself, what are you doing for the harm to cease? At the end of the day, being a newcomer, you have to realize that these people, even if it's the majority, they don't guard the doors of Jannah. These people are not paying your bills and bringing you food on the table. They have no power over you. People say, but yeah, we're like a family. But then I say, we are a dysfunctional family of estranged members who do not recognize each other. I understand that many are damaged by centuries, literally, centuries of war, imperialism, colonization, poverty, hunger, insecurity, and people are just maybe in a sort of post-colonial hangover. I'm all about letting my door open, and I believe that people can change, they can be better, but at the moment, I want to dedicate my time, my energy, my money to people who I have at hand the most near to me and who actually need me, who need me to be here, present and close to them. Even professionally, now I need to set boundaries, because people often ask me, my job is about organizations. For example, how do you retain a volunteer in our charity? People ask me, hey Will, how do we solve this internal conflict? How do we manage this PR crisis? How do we grow the reach of our business or our charity? How do we improve our work culture, blah, blah, blah. But I have a friend who's a consultant, and he does kind of the exact same thing for a job. And he told me that here in the UK, people charge 1,500 an hour for answering these questions. And even if it's like small charities, people pay up. Non-Muslims I'm talking about. So, and if for 15 years I've done this for free, because I believe, fi sabilillah, the idea of the ummah. But now, I have a family to support. I have expenses, and unless you are a close friend, be prepared for an invoice. And ironically, even the closest friends I have, when I insisted to do the work for free, they would insist for paying me. So my advice for anyone seeking Islam in the UK, beware. First of all, I would say seek knowledge as much as you can, so you can make a difference between the message of Islam and what people do about it. There's many sources on the internet, online Qur'ans, online tafsirs, different translations, the story of the Prophet, the context of the revelation, many, many things. Seek knowledge first. And if you're alone, make sure you've got one or two people who can support you no matter what happens. People you can literally call at 3 a.m. because something bad happened, and they will be there. Or if not, if you don't have these people, be at least confident that you can deal with things on your own, and you're comfortable being on your own. Home is not where the heart is. Home is where nurture is, where safety is. So home, for me, it's not the UK, somewhere else, with some other people. But for me, it's a very happy ending, because after 10 years of struggles and sadness and misadventures, now it's over. I'm done suffering. I'm done dwelling in pain and encountering harmful encounters. Now, it's like when I took this decision that all of these 10 years, it's all behind now. The worst is behind. Here is to a new future, to new opportunities. Now, when you're not restrained to a single community with its codes and these boxes to tick, the possibilities are just infinite. Just God has put us on earth, and all these people from different cultures, different beliefs. But we don't have to restrain ourselves to people because we share the same ethnicity or the cultural codes or whatever. The world is our oyster, like people say in England. Now my priorities are to heal, to recover, getting fit again, and prioritize the people who were always there for me and who are around me, people who love me for who I am and as I am. So now I welcome a life where I'm gonna nurture all these wonderful friendships that I found along the way towards new futures. I still pray though that British Muslims and British people in general become better people, and that maybe future generations become a mercy for others. So thank you for staying along till the end, and now it's time for me to take a very long break because I have to work on other exciting projects. You can check all of these on my website, and do not subscribe to my channel because it is not about British Islam, Muslims, or painful things. I mean, sometimes, but it's also about very optimistic ways of getting out of trouble. So don't feed the algorithm, that's maybe the main reason. Anyways, thanks again, and until next time, and always remember, take care of each other.